Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me for Singapore FinTech Festival coverage is Mark Jackson, CEO of the Baltic Exchange, to discuss digitalization in global shipping. Mark, it's great to see you virtually. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Thank you very much for having me.
Shipping, like many other sectors, is undergoing a digital transformation facilitated by technological advances in artificial intelligence and big data, among other technologies. Challenging times brought on by COVID-19 have underscored the benefits offered by digitalization. What is the Baltic doing in terms of digitalizing its processes and product offerings?
One of the first things we're doing is making sure that we're in touch with most of the new initiatives coming from within our industry, but also we've been looking at what's happening outside, because many people now have access to large data such as, port lineups, commodity movements. Where the Baltic has actually seen some major changes is that we've just done a complete new launch of our website. We now have dashboards that show our data in a much better way. But I think most of the technological changes have happened under the hood, which is more often than not the case, because it's how we're manipulating that data before it gets presented to people. So because we're a benchmark administrator, we need to make sure that our indices and our numbers are trusted. So it's about validation of that data. So we have a lot of data science running on the way that we collect our data from our panelists, because our indices are made up from shipbrokers who are submitting prices to us on a daily basis. And so we're monitoring those submissions, for quality. We're also back testing using market information to see whether those indices were actually truly reflecting the market. We look for anomalies in the data that comes to us. So it's almost like your bank, is monitoring your credit card. We're monitoring the profiles of that data coming to us, making sure that we're looking for market manipulation, those submissions to make sure that they are accurate, and we believe that they're the truest representation of the price on the day.
Another hot topic in shipping these days is decarbonization, with the industry experiencing growing pressure to reduce emissions among ambitious targets set by the International Maritime Organization. What role do you see the Baltic playing in supporting these efforts?
Well, I think the key word there is support. We reflect the cost of change, and our industry is strongly guided by government and IMO policy. They look to government for leadership and guidance, and we help amplify that message by being part of those discussions. Policy is going to be crucial in defining the trajectory of maritime decarbonizations. But I think one of the things is, the Baltic's benchmarks and indices is about risk management, and there is a necessity for effective carbon risk management tools. I mean, the average vessel has a lifespan of 20, even some of the bigger ones, 25 years, more specialized, sorry. So there are only about 1.5 fleet generations before 2050, which many of the policy directives have placed emission targets. So, for all sectors, and not only in maritime, with long-lived assets, most of this asset base will remain carbon intensive up to 2050, unless there's a significant increase in the development of, commercialization of low carbon and carbon neutral technologies. So therefore, there's got to be some initiatives at a government level to deal with these assets that are on the water, and there's got to be effective risk management and mitigation tools, to enable those operators to continue to operate. Otherwise, the cost of shipping your goods are just going to go through the roof. So either way, people are going to pay for it, and it's better to pay to reduce the emissions, I think, than actually just try and increase the cost for those ones that are left behind. So bring on board, let's say, the new technology adoption. So we'll be looking to help to work with financial institutions, because funding is going to be required for an entire new industry, devoted to maritime decarbonization.
And Mark, the Baltic has been actively adding new index categories in the past year, having launched LNG, liquefied natural gas, freight, container, and air cargo indices in short order. What is driving these initiatives, and where do you see the Baltic headed next?
Well, one of the things that's driving it is risk management. You know, a lot of people do look to indices now, benchmarks, for management of risk. And the major change for the Baltic was the fact that in the EU, this is now a regulated industry. So we became regulated in March this year, and that means that we are a benchmark administrator. And so the production of benchmarks is that you have one part that, let's say, collects the data and is a calculating agent, and then you have a benchmark administrator that handles the regulatory side. So we're one of the first in this sector being regulated, and so we've been looking for partners such as Containerbox with Freightos and producing the FBX index, and then with TAC on the air cargo index. So we've joined up with them as calculating agents to bring on our regulation expertise in the form of a benchmark administrator. So that's been one of the big drivers, is actually reflecting to, let's say, this enormous amount of work we have to do to meet a regulatory standard.
All right, Mark, appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.